The alarm clock read 6:47 a.m. when Daniel Carter's eyes opened to the pale gray light filtering through the bedroom curtains. Another Thursday morning in late October. Another day that would unfold exactly like the one before it. He reached over to silence the alarm before it could shatter the quiet, a habit formed from years of not wanting to startle Emma awake too early. The house was still. That comfortable, familiar silence that had become his companion over the past 4 years. The kind of quiet that used to feel lonely, but now felt like peace. Daniel stretched, feeling the pull in his lower back, a reminder that 32 wasn't quite as forgiving as 25 had been, and sat up, running his hand through dark hair that desperately needed a trim. Through the window, he could see the neighborhood beginning to wake. Portland's autumn had painted the street in shades of amber and rust, leaves collecting in neat piles along the sidewalks of their quiet residential area. The Hendersons across the street already had their porch light on. Mrs. Chen, 2 doors down, was retrieving her newspaper in her powder blue robe, same as every morning. Routine, predictable, safe. Daniel pulled on his worn gray sweatpants and the faded University of Oregon t-shirt he'd been wearing to bed for the better part of a decade. His bedroom was sparse but tidy. A queen bed with a navy comforter, a dresser with Emma's kindergarten photo in a simple frame, a closet with exactly enough clothes for a software developer who worked from home 3 days a week. He padded quietly down the hallway, passing Emma's room. The door was cracked open just enough for him to see the lump under her unicorn-patterned comforter, her stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunk, clutched in her small arms. 7 years old and still insisting she was too big for stuffed animals, yet somehow Mr. Trunk made it into bed every single night. A smile tugged at Daniel's lips. These moments, these quiet morning observations, were what he lived for now. The simple joy of knowing his daughter was safe, warm, dreaming whatever magical dreams 7-year-olds dreamed. He descended the stairs carefully, avoiding the third step that creaked. The living room was exactly as they'd left it the night before. Emma's coloring book spread across the coffee table, 2 empty hot chocolate mugs waiting to be washed, the TV remote balanced precariously on the arm of the couch. Daniel headed toward the kitchen, already mentally preparing his morning routine. Start the coffee maker, check his work emails, make Emma's lunch for school, prep breakfast. The day would proceed with comfortable predictability from there. But then he smelled it. Coffee. Fresh, rich, the unmistakable aroma of dark roast filling the air. Daniel stopped at the entrance to the kitchen, his hand resting on the doorframe. His mind struggled to process what his senses were telling him. He hadn't set the coffee maker last night. He never did. Preferred to do it fresh in the morning, part of the routine that got him going. His heart rate kicked up a notch. Maybe he'd forgotten? Been on autopilot last night after putting Emma to bed? But no. He remembered clearly. He'd washed their mugs, wiped down the counter, turned off all the lights. The sound of a cabinet closing reached his ears. Someone was in his kitchen. Adrenaline flooded Daniel's system. His first instinct was to run back upstairs, grab Emma, get out. His second was to find his phone. Where had he left it? Nightstand? No, downstairs. Kitchen counter. His daughter's face flashed through his mind. 7 years old, sleeping peacefully upstairs. Daniel forced himself to move forward, every muscle tensed. He grabbed the nearest potential weapon, an umbrella from the hall closet, and stepped into the kitchen doorway. What he saw stopped him completely. A woman stood at his stove, her back to him. Dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, catching the warm light from the fixture above. She was wearing his shirt, his favorite worn flannel, the blue and gray one he couldn't find yesterday, and apparently nothing else but underwear, the shirt hem hitting mid-thigh. She was humming something soft and melodic as she moved a spatula through a pan of scrambled eggs. The kitchen looked lived in, comfortable. There was toast in the toaster, fresh coffee in his favorite mug sitting on the counter, and she'd somehow found the good butter he kept hidden in the back of the fridge. For one disorienting moment, Daniel's brain tried to make sense of this in a way that was normal. An ex-girlfriend he'd forgotten about? A neighbor who'd somehow... But no. He knew every person who had a key to this house, and that list was exactly 2 people long. Him and Emma. "Who the hell are you?" The words came out rougher than he intended, but his grip on the umbrella tightened. The woman didn't jump, didn't spin around in surprise. She simply turned off the burner with a casual twist of her wrist, set down the spatula, and slowly turned to face him. Daniel's breath caught. She was stunning in a way that had nothing to do with conventional beauty and everything to do with presence. Late 20s, maybe 30, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that assessed him with the kind of calm intelligence that made his skin prickle. There was a small scar above her left eyebrow, barely noticeable. She wasn't wearing makeup, and somehow that made her more striking, but it was the complete lack of fear in her expression that truly unsettled him. "Good morning," she said, her voice low and smooth, carrying a slight accent he couldn't quite place. "East Coast, maybe? New York? Coffee's ready. I made enough for both of us." "I asked you a question." Daniel raised the umbrella slightly, aware of how ridiculous he probably looked. "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?" She tilted her head, studying him with those dark eyes. "My name is Valentina, and before you call the police, which I can see you're thinking about, you should know that would be a very bad idea. For both of us. Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." She moved to pour coffee into a second mug, and Daniel tensed, but she only added cream and sugar before sliding it across the counter toward him. "I'm not here to hurt you or your daughter. Emma, right? 7 years old, second grade, teacher's name is Mrs. Patterson. Has a stuffed elephant she pretends she doesn't sleep with anymore." Ice water rushed through Daniel's veins. "How do you know that?" "I know a lot of things." Valentina picked up her own mug, cradling it in both hands. "I know you're Daniel Carter, 32, software developer for Morrison Tech. You work from home Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Your ex-wife Rebecca lives in Seattle with her new husband. Emma visits her 1 weekend a month. You have a standing order at Chen's Market for groceries delivered every Sunday. You haven't been on a date in 2 years." The umbrella clattered to the floor. Daniel's hands were shaking. Are you watching us? Following my daughter?" "No." The word was firm, definitive. "I accessed public records, social media, and made some educated observations. It took me about 20 minutes to learn everything I needed to know about your life, which, if I'm being honest, is both a blessing and a concern. You're too easy to find, Daniel. Your privacy settings are terrible. Get out." Daniel's voice was low, dangerous in a way he didn't recognize. "Get out of my house right now, or I swear, or you'll what?" She set down the mug, and Daniel saw it then, the flash of something hard and sharp beneath the calm exterior. "Call the police? By all means. Tell them Valentina Rossi broke into your home. See what happens." The name hit him like a physical blow. Valentina Rossi. He'd heard that name. Where? News? Online? She watched recognition dawn on his face. "I see you know who I am. You're—" Daniel's mind raced, pulling up fragments of news articles, online forums, whispered stories. "You're connected to organized crime, the Rossi family. There was a thing in the news about financial fraud, racketeering. Allegedly," Valentina interrupted. "Nothing was ever proven. The charges were dropped. Because witnesses disappeared. Because the prosecution's case fell apart." She picked up her coffee again, took a deliberate sip. "But yes, I am that Valentina Rossi, which is why calling the police would be complicated. For me, certainly, but also for you." "Is that a threat?" Daniel repeated, but his voice had lost some of its edge. Fear was creeping in, cold and insidious. "It's a warning." Valentina moved around the counter, and Daniel instinctively stepped back. She noticed but didn't comment. "I'm in trouble, Daniel. Real trouble. The kind that gets people hurt. And I needed somewhere safe to hide for a little while. Somewhere no one would think to look. And you chose my house? A random house? With a child? Not random." She gestured toward the kitchen table, where Daniel now noticed a folder he'd never seen before. "Sit down, please. Let me explain. And then you can decide what to do." Every instinct screamed at Daniel to run, to grab Emma and get out. But there was something in Valentina's eyes. Not desperation exactly, but something close. A kind of exhausted honesty that made him pause. Slowly, carefully, he moved to the table and sat. Valentina remained standing, leaning against the counter. 3 days ago, she began, I witnessed something I shouldn't have. A meeting between people who are very powerful and very dangerous. They were discussing a transaction, moving money, lots of it, through channels that aren't exactly legal. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was, and they saw me. Why were you there? A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Wrong place, wrong time. Story of my life. The details don't matter. What matters is that these people, they want to make sure I can't talk about what I saw. They have resources, connections. They know where I live, where I work, who my associates are. Associates, Daniel repeated. You mean other criminals? I mean people in my life, Valentina corrected, her tone cooling slightly. And yes, some of them operate outside the law. But that's not relevant right now. What's relevant is that I need a place to disappear for a few days while I figure out my next move, somewhere completely disconnected from my usual world. And you picked a house with a 7-year-old girl in it. Anger rose in Daniel's chest. Do you have any idea how insane that is? How dangerous? If these people find you here, they won't. Valentina's voice was absolute. That's the entire point. I chose your home specifically because there is zero connection between your life and mine. No one in my world knows you exist. No one would think to look here. I've been careful. No electronic trail, paid cash for everything, took precautions you wouldn't believe. And how did you even get in? She had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Your back door lock is embarrassingly easy to pick. You should really upgrade. And before you ask, no, I didn't touch anything in Emma's room. I stayed on the couch last night. The shirt, she glanced down at the flannel she was wearing. I borrowed from your laundry room this morning. Mine were not suitable for sleeping in. I hope you don't mind. Daniel stared at her. This impossible woman standing in his kitchen wearing his shirt and talking about breaking and entering like it was a minor social faux pas. You're insane, he said finally. Completely insane. Probably, Valentina agreed. But I'm also your current reality. So let's talk about how we handle this. We don't handle anything. You leave. Right now. Daniel. She set down her mug and crossed her arms. Think about what you're suggesting. If I walk out that door right now, where do I go? Back to my apartment? That's being watched. To a friend? They're all known associates. Compromised. A hotel? These people have connections everywhere. They'll find me, and when they do, she trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the air. That's not my problem. No, it's not, Valentina said quietly. You're right. It's not your problem, and you have every right to tell me to leave. But I'm asking you, as one human being to another, for 24 hours. One day. Let me stay here out of sight while I make arrangements to get somewhere safer. I'll stay in the basement if you want. I won't interact with Emma. You can lock me in for all I care, just one day. Daniel's mind was spinning. Every logical part of his brain was screaming danger. This woman was connected to organized crime. She'd broken into his home. She knew details about his daughter. There were so many red flags he'd lost count. But there was something in her eyes, something that looked like genuine fear beneath the controlled exterior. Why should I trust you? He asked. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't call the police right now. Valentina was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for the folder on the table and pushed it toward him. Because I'm not the only one in danger. Open it. With trembling hands, Daniel opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Surveillance photos by the look of them. Of him. Of Emma. Walking to school. At the grocery store. Playing in their backyard. The blood drained from his face. What? What is this? Insurance, Valentina said softly. The people looking for me, they're thorough. They've already started mapping out contingency plans. If I run, they need leverage, ways to find me. And they've identified potential connections. We're not connected. You said so yourself. We weren't. Until I came here. But I was sloppy, Daniel. In my panic to find somewhere safe, I left a small trail. Not much. Enough burner phone calls to gather information about neighborhoods. About you. If they dig deep enough, if they're smart enough, they might figure out I came here. And if they do, she didn't need to finish. Daniel stared at the photos, his hands shaking. You brought them to my door, he whispered. To Emma's door. No. I brought myself to your door because it was the safest option I had. Those photos, I took them from someone who was compiling them. They don't have them anymore. But the person who ordered them, they'll get more. Unless what? Unless I can give them what they want. Not testimony, they know I'm not stupid enough to go to the authorities. But silence. Guarantee them that I'm not a threat. That requires negotiation, leverage, time to set things up properly. 24 hours, Daniel. That's all I need. Daniel pushed back from the table, nearly knocking over his chair. He paced to the window, looking out at his quiet neighborhood. Mrs. Chen was heading back inside. The Hendersons' porch light had gone off. Everything looked so normal, so safe. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Daddy? The small voice from the doorway made both adults freeze. Emma stood there in her princess pajamas, Mr. Trunk tucked under one arm, her brown hair a mess of tangles around her sleepy face. She was rubbing her eyes, clearly just woken up. Hey, sweetheart, Daniel said, his voice automatically softening even as panic clutched at his chest. What are you doing up so early? I smelled coffee, Emma said. Then her eyes focused on Valentina. Who's that? Valentina smiled. A real smile. Warm and genuine in a way that completely transformed her face. Good morning, Emma. I'm Valentina. I'm a friend of your dad's. I don't know you, Emma said with the blunt honesty of 7-year-olds. That's true. We just met recently. I'm visiting from out of town. Emma looked at her father, then back at Valentina, processing this information with serious concentration. Why are you wearing Daddy's shirt? Emma, Daniel interjected, go back upstairs and get dressed for school, okay? We'll talk about this. I spilled coffee on mine, Valentina said smoothly. Your dad was nice enough to lend me one of his. Pretty comfy, actually. Emma seemed to accept this explanation. Are you staying for breakfast? If your dad says it's okay. Two pairs of eyes turned to Daniel. Emma's bright with curiosity, Valentina's carefully neutral, but with an edge of something that might have been pleading. He thought about the photos in the folder, about powerful people with dangerous resources, about the lock on his back door that was embarrassingly easy to pick, about his daughter's safety, which had been the organizing principle of his entire life for the past 4 years. And he thought about a woman who'd broken into his home, made coffee, scrambled eggs, and asked for 24 hours. Yeah, he heard himself say, Valentina can stay for breakfast. But then we need to have a grown-up conversation. Okay, Em? Okay? Emma brightened immediately. Can we have the eggs? They smell really good? Sure, baby. Go get dressed first. Emma padded back upstairs, and the kitchen fell into silence. Daniel turned to face Valentina, his decision made even if every nerve in his body protested it. 24 hours, he said quietly. Not a minute more. You stay out of sight, you don't answer the door. You don't make phone calls Emma might overhear. And if I get even the slightest feeling that she's in danger, you'll protect her. I know. I would expect nothing less. Valentina's expression was serious now. Thank you, Daniel. You won't regret this. I already regret it, he muttered, but he sat back down at the table. Valentina returned to the stove, plating the eggs she'd made. The domestic normalcy of the action felt surreal. Here was a woman connected to organized crime, wanted by dangerous people. Serving breakfast in his kitchen like this was the most natural thing in the world. For what it's worth, she said as she set a plate in front of him. I really am grateful, and I meant what I said. I would never hurt Emma, no matter what happens. Daniel looked at the perfectly cooked eggs, the toast cut into neat triangles, the coffee in his favorite mug. Then he looked at Valentina Rossi, this impossible, dangerous, desperate woman who'd invaded his careful, quiet life. I hope you're telling the truth, he said. Because if you're not, you'll do whatever it takes to keep your daughter safe, Valentina finished. I know. So will I. That's why I'm here. She raised her coffee mug and a small toast. Daniel, after a moment's hesitation, did the same. 24 hours. What could possibly go wrong? As Emma's footsteps sounded on the stairs, Daniel had the distinct feeling that his life had just divided into before and after. Before this morning, and after Valentina Rossi appeared in his kitchen wearing his shirt, smelling of coffee and secrets. The worst part was, he couldn't even explain why he'd agreed. Maybe it was the photos. Maybe it was the exhaustion in her eyes beneath the controlled exterior. Maybe it was 4 years of safe, predictable routine that had left him forgetting what risk felt like. Or maybe, a small voice whispered in the back of his mind, it was the fact that, for the first time in those 4 years, he'd felt something other than comfortable numbness. Emma bounced back into the kitchen, now dressed in leggings and her favorite sweater with a cat on it. Can I sit next to Valentina? Sure, sweetheart, Daniel said, and watched as his daughter climbed into the chair next to a woman who, by all logic, should terrify him. But as Valentina engaged Emma in conversation about school and Mr. Trunk and whether cats or dogs made better pets, Daniel found himself studying her, really looking, seeing past the initial shock to the person beneath, and he realized something unsettling. He believed her. This dangerous, mysterious woman who'd broken into his home, he actually believed she wouldn't hurt Emma, that she was, in her own strange way, telling the truth, which meant the next 24 hours were going to be interesting, or disastrous. Possibly both. Daniel took a bite of the eggs. They were perfect. Of course they were. So, Emma was saying, what do you do for work, Valentina? Valentina's eyes flickered to Daniel for just a moment. I work in finance. Very boring stuff. Numbers and spreadsheets all day. My dad works with computers. I know, he told me. Are you his girlfriend? Daniel choked on his coffee. Valentina's lips twitched with what might have been amusement. No, sweetheart. Just a friend. Oh. Emma sounded disappointed. Daddy needs a girlfriend. He's lonely. Emma? Daniel said, his face burning. We don't need to discuss this right now. Mrs. Chen says you're too handsome to be alone, Emma continued, oblivious to her father's mortification. She says it's sad. Mrs. Chen needs to mind her own business, Daniel muttered. Valentina was definitely smiling now, despite the tension of the situation. Your dad seems like he's doing just fine to me. But don't you think he's handsome? Emma pressed. Emma, eat your breakfast, Daniel interrupted firmly. We're going to be late. His daughter giggled but complied, and Daniel caught Valentina's eye across the table. For one moment, The absurdity of the situation hit them both. Him, her, his daughter. Eating breakfast like this was normal. And despite everything, the danger, the fear, the complete insanity of it all, Daniel felt something in his chest loosen. Some knot he hadn't known was there. 24 hours. The clock was ticking. The morning unfolded with a surreal quality that Daniel couldn't quite shake. He'd dropped Emma off at Riverside Elementary at exactly 8:15 a.m., same as always, watching her skip through the gates with her backpack bouncing. She'd turned once to wave, her smile bright and uncomplicated, unaware that her father's world had tilted on its axis overnight. Now, driving back through Portland's drizzle-soaked streets, Daniel gripped the steering wheel and tried to process the impossibility of his situation. There was a woman, a dangerous woman with connections to organized crime, waiting in his house, wearing his clothes, drinking his coffee, and he'd agreed to let her stay. The rain picked up as he pulled into his driveway, fat drops splattering against the windshield. October in Portland meant gray skies and perpetual dampness, the kind of weather that seeped into your bones and made you crave warm spaces and hot drinks. Usually Daniel found it comforting. Today it felt ominous. He sat in the car for a moment, engine off, staring at his modest two-story home, pale blue siding, white trim, a small front porch with 2 chairs he never sat in. It looked exactly like every other house on the block. Safe, suburban, unremarkable. Except now it was hiding Valentina Rossi. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from his boss. Morning check-in at 10. Quick status update on the Morrison project. Right. Work. Because today was Thursday, and on Thursdays he worked from home, and life was supposed to continue normally even though nothing about this was normal. He typed back, "Sure thing. I'll be on." Another text. This one from Rebecca, his ex-wife. Emma's birthday next month. Thinking of flying down. Can we talk logistics? Daniel stared at the message. Emma's 8th birthday. In exactly 3 weeks. He'd already ordered the bike she'd been asking for, already planned the small party with her school friends at the bowling alley. And now he had no idea what his life would look like in 3 weeks, or 3 days, or 3 hours. He pocketed the phone and headed inside. Valentina was no longer in the kitchen. The breakfast dishes were washed and drying in the rack. She'd even wiped down the counters. For a moment, Daniel wondered if he'd imagined the entire morning. Maybe it had been a stress dream. Maybe he'd fallen asleep on the couch and, "I'm upstairs," her voice called down. "Hope you don't mind. I needed to borrow some actual clothes." Daniel climbed the stairs to find his bedroom door open. Valentina stood in front of his dresser mirror, wearing a pair of his joggers rolled at the waist and a plain gray t-shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Without the flannel shirt and the kitchen lighting, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "I'll pay you back," she said, catching his reflection in the mirror. "For the clothes, the food, everything. That's not—" Daniel stopped, unsure what he was trying to say. "Just don't go through my stuff, okay? Fair." She turned to face him. "I stayed out of Emma's room, and I only took what I needed. Scout's honor. Were you actually a scout?" A ghost of a smile. "No, but it seemed like the thing to say." Daniel leaned against the doorframe, studying her. In the daylight streaming through his bedroom window, he could see details he'd missed in the kitchen's warm glow. The scar above her eyebrow was more pronounced. There were shadows under her eyes that makeup might have hidden. And her hands, when they weren't holding coffee mugs or cooking utensils, had a slight tremor. She was scared, trying hard not to show it, but scared nonetheless. "Tell me the truth," Daniel said quietly. "How much danger are we actually in?" Valentina considered the question, then moved to sit on the edge of his bed. The casual intimacy of the gesture should have felt wrong, but somehow it didn't. "Honestly, if I've done my job right, very little. I've been careful, Daniel. More careful than I've ever been about anything. No one knows I'm here. But the people looking for me are smart, ruthless. They have resources that would surprise you." She looked down at her hands. "If they find me, they won't knock politely, and they won't care who else is in the way." Daniel's stomach tightened. Then why stay? Why not just keep running? Because running without a plan gets you caught. I need time to set things up, make arrangements, create leverage. She met his eyes. "I know this is hard to understand, but I'm actually good at what I do. Survival. It's basically my primary skill set at this point." What exactly do you do?" Daniel moved into the room, keeping a careful distance. "You said finance, but that's not the whole story, is it?" Valentina was quiet for a long moment. Rain pattered against the window, filling the silence. "My family," she began slowly, "has been involved in certain businesses for 3 generations. My grandfather started with gambling operations in Atlantic City. My father expanded into legitimate investments, property development, some less than legitimate financial services. I grew up around it, learned the language, the rules, the way that world works, and you just accepted it, became part of it. Her laugh was bitter. I was 18 when I tried to leave, got accepted to Columbia, full scholarship, was going to study economics, make something different of myself. My father was even proud in his way. Thought I'd learn something useful, bring it back to help the family business go legitimate. What happened? He had a heart attack. Massive. He died before the ambulance arrived. Valentina's voice was flat, controlled. And suddenly, I was the oldest. My mother didn't understand the business. My younger brother was 16. There were obligations, debts, arrangements that needed honoring. I was the only one who could step in. You could have walked away. Could I? She looked at him sharply. My father's debts became my debts. His promises became my promises. The people he did business with, they don't accept "I'd rather not" as an answer. It was step up or watch my family lose everything, including their safety. Daniel absorbed this, trying to reconcile the woman sitting on his bed with the story she was telling. So you sacrificed your own life. I made a choice. Not a great one, but mine. She stood, moving to the window. I've spent the last 11 years navigating a world I never wanted to be part of, learning to be hard when I needed to be, smart when hardness wasn't enough. And yes, I've done things I'm not proud of. Hurt people, probably. But I've also kept my family safe, kept myself alive. That counts for something. Until 3 days ago. Until 3 days ago, she agreed. When I saw something I shouldn't have and became a liability instead of an asset. Daniel wanted to ask what she'd seen, but something in her expression stopped him. Some conversations he was learning had boundaries even in desperate situations. I'm going to make some calls, Valentina said, pulling out a phone. Not a smartphone, Daniel noticed, but an old flip phone. Set up some meetings for tomorrow. I'll use the basement if you want privacy. The basement's not finished. It's just storage and the water heater. Perfect. Less chance of Emma wandering in. She moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you. I know I said it this morning, but I mean it. This kindness. It's not something I'm used to. After she disappeared downstairs, Daniel stood in his bedroom feeling like a stranger in his own life. He checked his watch. 9:47 a.m., 13 minutes until his work call. He needed to focus. Be normal. Pretend everything was fine. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of video meetings and code reviews. Daniel sat at his home office desk, laptop open, discussing project timelines and bug fixes while his mind kept wandering to the woman in his basement, making calls on a burner phone to people he probably didn't want to know about. At noon, he made sandwiches, turkey and Swiss, the same lunch he'd been making himself for months. He called down to Valentina, and she emerged looking tired but more settled. They ate at the kitchen table in companionable silence, which was strange in itself. Daniel kept expecting to feel afraid or angry or something more dramatic than this odd comfort. You're good with her, Valentina said suddenly. Emma, you're a good father. I try. No, I mean it. The way she looks at you, that's trust. Real trust. A lot of kids don't have that. Did you? The question was out before Daniel could stop it. Sorry, that's personal? Valentina smiled slightly. I suppose we're past that point. And no, not really. My father loved us, but he was complicated, hard to read. I never quite knew where I stood. And your mother? Still alive, living in Miami with my brother. I send them money every month. They think I work in financial consulting, which is technically true. She took a bite of her sandwich. They're better off not knowing the details. Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number he didn't recognize. He frowned, letting it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it buzzed with a message. He played it on speaker without thinking. Mr. Carter, this is Detective Sarah Mills with Portland PD. Nothing to worry about, just following up on some routine inquiries in your neighborhood. There have been some reports of suspicious activity on your street over the past few nights. If you notice anything unusual, please give us a call. Thanks. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Valentina was very still, her sandwich forgotten. Play that again. Daniel did. They listened to the detective's calm, professional voice a second time. It could be nothing, Daniel said, but his voice was uncertain. She said routine inquiries. Maybe there actually was something. There wasn't. Valentina stood, moving to the window with careful, controlled movements. I've been watching this neighborhood for 3 days before I came here. Nothing unusual. No break-ins, no suspicious vehicles, no reason for police to be canvassing. Then why? They're looking for me. Not specifically here, but they're widening the net. calling residents, asking questions, seeing if anyone acts nervous or provides inconsistent information. She turned to face him, and Daniel saw real worry in her eyes for the first time. Did you call that number back? Not yet. Don't. Not immediately. That would be suspicious. Most people would wait or forget entirely, but we need to figure out what to say if she calls again or shows up. If she shows up? Daniel's voice rose. You said we were safe, that no one would think to look here. We are. They shouldn't. But they're being thorough, which means they're worried, which means… She trailed off, thinking. We need to have a story. A simple one. You've been home all week working, haven't noticed anything unusual, no strange cars, no suspicious people. You're helpful, but uninformed. That's not a story. That's the truth. Exactly. The best lies are mostly truth. She started pacing. If she asks about visitors, you tell her your daughter was home, your routine was normal. You don't mention me unless directly asked, and even then what? I lied to the police. You tell them you had a friend visiting from out of town, which is true. You don't volunteer information about who I am unless they specifically ask, which they won't, because they have no reason to connect me to you. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. This is insane. This whole thing is insane. I know. Valentina's voice softened. And I'm sorry. I really am. But we're in this now, both of us, and we need to be smart. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel tried to work but couldn't focus. Valentina stayed mostly in the basement, making her quiet calls, emerging occasionally for water or to use the bathroom. Every car that passed the house made Daniel's pulse spike. Every notification on his phone felt like a potential crisis. At 3 p.m., he left to pick up Emma from school. The rain had stopped, leaving everything damp and gray. Daniel sat in the pickup line, watching parents and children reunite with hugs and conversations about their days. Normal life, unfolding exactly as it always did. Emma climbed into the car with her usual enthusiasm, chattering about art class and how Tommy Martinez had gotten in trouble for putting glue in Jessica's hair. Is Valentina still at our house? She asked as Daniel pulled into traffic. Yeah, sweetheart. She's staying a little longer. I like her. She's nice and pretty. Don't you think she's pretty, Daddy? Emma. What? I'm just saying. You always get weird when I talk about this stuff. I don't get weird. You totally do. Mrs. Chen says… If you quote Mrs. Chen one more time, Daniel interrupted with a smile he didn't quite feel. I'm going to have a talk with Mrs. Chen. Emma giggled, and for a moment everything felt almost normal, until they pulled into the driveway and saw a woman standing on their front porch. Dark pantsuit, badge on her belt, professional posture. She was knocking on their door. Detective Mills. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Stay in the car for a minute, okay? Why? Who's that lady? Just stay here. I'll be right back. He climbed out, forcing himself to walk normally, to look curious rather than terrified. Can I help you? He called. The detective turned, and Daniel got his first good look at her. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of person who made a living reading people in situations. Mr. Carter? Detective Sarah Mills, Portland PD. She showed him her badge. I left you a voicemail earlier. Oh, right. Sorry, I've been meaning to call back. Work got busy. Daniel climbed the porch steps, very aware of Emma watching from the car, very aware of Valentina somewhere inside. You said something about suspicious activity? That's right. We've had some reports of unusual behavior in this neighborhood over the past week. Unfamiliar vehicles, people who don't seem to belong. Just wanted to check if you'd noticed anything? No, nothing like that. But I work from home a lot, so I'm not always paying attention to the street. Detective Mills nodded, making a note in a small pad. Anyone else living here with you? Just my daughter. She's 7. No visitors recently? Friends staying over? Family in town? This was it. The moment where Daniel either lied to a police officer or potentially put Valentina, and by extension, himself and Emma, in more danger. He thought of the photos in the folder, of Emma's face in surveillance pictures, of powerful people with dangerous resources. Actually, he said carefully, I do have a friend visiting. From New York. She's staying a few days. Detective Mills's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Would I be able to speak with her? Daniel's heart hammered. Sure. The front door opened. Valentina stood there in his borrowed clothes, hair still in that messy bun, looking for all the world like someone who belonged exactly where she was. Hey, she said to Daniel, then noticed the detective. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. No interruption, Detective Mills said smoothly. I'm just asking neighbors if they've noticed anything unusual lately. Are you visiting from out of town? That's right, New York. Just here for a few days to get out of the city for a bit. Valentina's whole demeanor had shifted. She was softer now, more open, completely unthreatening. Is everything okay? Just routine follow-up. Have you noticed anything suspicious around the neighborhood? Honestly, I've barely left the house. Been catching up on sleep mostly. It's quieter here than Manhattan. She smiled, and it looked genuine. Is there something specific we should be watching for? Detective Mills studied her for a moment longer than comfortable. Daniel held his breath. Just keep your doors locked, the detective said finally. And if you see anyone or anything that seems off, don't hesitate to call. She handed them each a card, thanked them for their time, and headed back to her unmarked sedan. Daniel and Valentina watched her drive away. Emma had climbed out of the car and was heading up the walk. Who was that? She asked. Police officer, Daniel said, his voice remarkably steady. Just checking on the neighborhood. Cool. Did she have a gun? Inside. Homework time. As his daughter bounded into the house, Daniel turned to Valentina. She met his eyes, and he saw acknowledgement there. Gratitude. And something else. Respect, maybe. 24 hours, Daniel said quietly. 24 hours, Valentina agreed. But they both knew that line had already been crossed. The moment he'd backed her story to Detective Mills, the moment he'd chosen to protect her instead of exposing her, the equation had changed. For better or worse, they were in this together now. And as Daniel followed his daughter inside, closing the door on the gray Portland afternoon, he couldn't shake the feeling that the detective's visit was just the beginning. The real question was, the beginning of what? 3 days had passed since Detective Mills appeared on Daniel's doorstep. 3 days of living in a surreal reality where danger and domesticity existed side by side. It was Sunday evening now, and Daniel stood at his kitchen window watching Emma and Valentina in the backyard. His daughter was teaching the former crime associate how to play hopscotch on the chalk-drawn squares they'd made that afternoon. Valentina's laughter carried through the glass, genuine, unguarded, nothing like the controlled woman who'd first appeared in his kitchen. She's good with kids, Mrs. Chen had commented earlier when she'd spotted them over the fence. Your girlfriend. Very nice lady. Daniel hadn't corrected her. The lie had become easier with each repetition. The past 72 hours had developed a strange rhythm. Mornings meant breakfast together, Emma chattering about school while Valentina listened with surprising attentiveness. Days meant Daniel working from his home office while Valentina made quiet phone calls in the basement, emerging periodically looking more tense or more relieved depending on how the conversations went. Evenings meant the three of them cooking dinner, watching movies, existing in a bubble that felt increasingly comfortable. And that comfort terrified Daniel more than anything else. He'd started researching Valentina late at night after Emma was asleep. Sitting in the dim glow of his laptop, he'd combed through news articles, court records, forum discussions. The picture that emerged was complicated. Valentina Rossi, 29 years old, daughter of Marcus Rossi, who died suddenly 11 years ago. She'd taken over his financial consulting firm, a known front for money laundering operations. Multiple investigations, never enough evidence for charges. Witnesses who recanted testimonies or disappeared, but also charitable donations to children's hospitals. Anonymous scholarships for at-risk youth, a reputation for being ruthless in business but unexpectedly principled in personal dealings. One article from an investigative journalist particularly stuck with him. Valentina Rossi operates in moral gray zones that would destroy most people. Yet those who know her personally describe someone trying to navigate an impossible situation with as much integrity as the circumstances allow. She's not a villain. She's a person trapped in a villainous world. Daddy, come play with us! Emma's voice pulled him from his thoughts. He stepped outside into the cool October evening, the smell of fallen leaves and approaching rain heavy in the air. What are we playing? He asked. Valentina doesn't know hopscotch rules, Emma announced seriously. We have to teach her. I grew up in the city, Valentina explained with a self-deprecating smile. Lots of concrete, not much chalk. For the next 20 minutes, Daniel let himself sink into the moment, watching Emma demonstrate her technique with exaggerated precision. Seeing Valentina try and fail and laugh at her own clumsiness. The ordinary magic of a child's game on a Sunday evening. When Emma went inside for her bath, Daniel and Valentina remained in the backyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and purple. Thank you, Valentina said quietly. For this. For letting me have these moments. It's not exactly a hardship. She's happy. That's what matters. Still, I know what I'm asking of you. The risk you're taking. She turned to face him, and in the fading light, Daniel saw vulnerability there. I've been thinking about my exit strategy. I have a meeting tomorrow night. Someone who can help me disappear properly. New identity, new location. After that, you'll never hear from me again. Something twisted in Daniel's chest. Tomorrow night? It's time. I've stayed too long already. The longer I'm here, the more danger I put you both in. She wrapped her arms around herself. I called my mother today. Told her I love her. Didn't tell her why, of course. But I wanted her to hear it, just in case. In case of what? Valentina's smile was sad. In case the meeting doesn't go the way I hope. In case the people I'm dealing with decide I'm more valuable gone than alive. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Neither do you. Daniel moved closer, not quite sure what he was doing. You're smart, Valentina. You've survived this long. You'll survive tomorrow, too. Such confidence from someone who barely knows me. I know enough. They stood there in the growing darkness, the space between them charged with something Daniel didn't want to name. The kitchen light spilled across the grass, and from inside came the sound of Emma singing in the bathtub. I used to have a life planned, Valentina said softly. College, career, maybe marriage and kids someday. Normal things, simple things. And then everything changed, and I had to become someone else, someone harder, someone who could make impossible choices without flinching. You're still that person you were going to be, Daniel said, just with more layers. That's generous. Most people see me as a criminal. Most people don't know you. And you do? Daniel considered this. No, but I've watched you with my daughter. I've seen how you make coffee in the morning and wash dishes without being asked. How you get this look on your face when Emma laughs, like your surprised joy still exists. That tells me something. Valentina was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're dangerous, Daniel Carter. Me? You make me want things I can't have. Normal things. Simple things. She stepped closer, and Daniel's breath caught. That's the most dangerous thing of all. The back door burst open. Daddy, I can't find Mr. Trunk. Emma's distress was immediate and total. He's not in my bed, and I can't sleep without him. The moment shattered. Daniel turned to his daughter, sliding instantly into father mode. Okay, sweetheart, let's go find him. Did you check the living room? As they headed inside to search for the missing stuffed elephant, Valentina followed. Daniel was acutely aware of how close they'd been to, what, a kiss? A confession? Something that couldn't be taken back? Mr. Trunk was eventually located wedged behind the washing machine. How he'd gotten there remained a mystery. Emma clutched him triumphantly and headed upstairs for bed. Can Valentina read me a story? She asked at the last minute. Daniel looked at Valentina, who nodded. Sure, if she wants to. He watched them disappear upstairs together, his daughter's small hand in Valentina's. Something in his chest ached. Alone in the kitchen, Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. About your house guest. His blood ran cold. Another message. Don't be alarmed. I'm trying to help. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Pioneer Courthouse Square. Come alone. Tell no one. Daniel stared at the screen, his hands shaking. How did they know? Who was this? Footsteps on the stairs. Valentina returned, looking softer than he'd ever seen her. She's out like a light. Made me read 3 chapters, though. That kid negotiates like a pro. Valentina. Daniel held out the phone. Look at this. Her expression changed instantly as she read the messages. All the softness evaporated, replaced by sharp calculation. Give me your phone. She examined it carefully, checking settings, running through recent calls and messages. Your location services are on. Has been the whole time. They've been tracking you, which means they know I'm here. How? I haven't gone anywhere unusual. Just work, school pickup. That's enough. They've been watching your patterns, waiting to see if they changed. And they did change. You're more distracted, checking your phone more often, looking over your shoulder. Small things, but enough for professionals to notice. Daniel felt sick. The meeting tomorrow is a trap, obviously. They want to separate us, get you alone, use you as leverage against me. She handed back his phone. We need to leave, tonight, right now. We can't. Emma's asleep. And where would we go? I have safe houses, places even my enemies don't know about. No. Daniel's voice was firm. I'm not running. I'm not uprooting my daughter's entire life because of this. There has to be another way. Daniel, you don't understand what these people are capable of. Then make me understand. His voice rose, then immediately lowered, conscious of Emma sleeping upstairs. Tell me what you saw, what you know, why they're so desperate to find you. Valentina was silent, conflict clear on her face. Then she pulled out her phone, the burner, and showed him a video. It was grainy, clearly recorded secretly. 2 men in an expensive office discussing the movement of enormous sums of money. But it wasn't just money laundering. It was funding for something bigger. Something that implicated people at the highest levels of power. Politicians, judges, corporate executives. This recording, Valentina said quietly, could bring down an empire, destroy careers, send powerful people to prison for the rest of their lives. And I have copies hidden in 3 different locations. They know I have it. They know I could release it at any time. So why haven't you? Because the moment I do, I'm dead. The only thing keeping me alive is the threat of release. It's a stalemate. But now they're getting impatient. They want to force my hand. She looked at him. I'm sorry, Daniel. I thought I could handle this without involving you. I was wrong. A sound from outside. A car engine, idling just a bit too long in front of the house. They both froze. Valentina moved to the window, careful to stay hidden behind the curtain. Black sedan, tinted windows. That's them. How do you know? Because I know. Get Emma. We're leaving. Now. But before Daniel could move, his phone buzzed again. We're outside. You have 5 minutes to send her out. Or we come in. Your choice. Valentina read the message over his shoulder. Her face went very still. They won't hurt Emma. That's not their style. Too much attention, but they will come in if we don't respond. What do we do? She looked at him, and Daniel saw something shift in her expression. A decision being made. You do nothing. This is my problem. I'll go out there, talk to them, negotiate. You stay here with Emma, lock the doors. If things go wrong, you call the real police and tell them everything. No, absolutely not. Daniel, I said no. He moved to face her fully. You came here because you needed help, because you were out of options. Well, I'm here, and I'm not letting you walk out there alone. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I let you stay. The moment I lied to that detective. The moment my daughter asked you to read her a bedtime story. His voice was steady now, certain. We figure this out together, or not at all. Valentina stared at him, something like wonder crossing her face. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. A small smile, despite everything. Okay, together. But we do this smart. The phone buzzed again. 4 minutes. Outside, the black sedan waited in the darkness, and upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her father's quiet life was about to explode in ways he'd never imagined. Daniel looked at Valentina, this impossible, dangerous, complicated woman who'd invaded his life and somehow become part of it. So, he said, what's the plan? Chapter 4, The Choice That Changes Everything. The plan, Valentina said, her voice steady despite the car idling outside, is to use the one thing they want more than my silence. Which is? The recordings, the evidence. She pulled out her burner phone. I'm going to offer them a trade. The original files, all copies, everything, in exchange for guaranteed safety. For both of us. Daniel's mind raced. But you said that evidence is the only thing keeping you alive. It is, which is why I'm not actually going to give it to them. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. I'm going to make them think I will. Long enough to buy time for Plan B. There's a Plan B? There's always a Plan B. Valentina moved to the kitchen table, gesturing for Daniel to sit. Listen carefully. I have a contact, someone I trust, which is a very short list, who works for the FBI. She's been trying to build a case against these people for years, but never had enough evidence. I've been holding on to this recording as insurance, but now... She paused. Now I realize insurance only works if you're willing to cash it in. You're going to turn it over to the FBI? Not just turn it over. I'm going to make a deal. Full immunity in exchange for testimony and evidence. They get their case, I get protection and a clean slate. She checked her watch. 3 minutes now. But here's the problem. I need time to arrange the meeting, get the terms in writing, make sure it's airtight. And the people outside aren't going to give me that time. Daniel understood. So we stall. Exactly. I go out there, tell them I'm willing to negotiate but need 48 hours to retrieve the files from their hiding places. Make them believe I'm scared enough to cooperate, but smart enough not to hand everything over immediately. Will they believe that? They should. It's what they'd do in my position. Valentina looked at him intently. But Daniel, if this goes wrong, if they decide I'm not worth the trouble of negotiating with, you need to take Emma and go. There's a key taped under the 3rd drawer in your bathroom cabinet. It opens a safety deposit box at First National downtown. Inside are documents, cash, contact information, everything you'd need to disappear if necessary. When did you? 2 days ago. When you and Emma went to the grocery store, she had the grace to look apologetic. I'm sorry, I know it's a violation of trust, but I needed to know you'd be protected if worst came to worst. Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed again. 2 minutes. Send her out, or we're coming in. I have to go, Valentina said, standing. But Daniel grabbed her hand. Wait, what if there's another way? An idea was forming, wild and probably stupid, but it was something. What if we don't stall? What if we force their hand right now? I'm listening. You said your FBI contact is trying to build a case. What if we brought the case to her, literally, right now? Get her on the phone. Tell her what's happening. Have federal agents here in minutes. These people outside, they won't risk a confrontation with the FBI. They'll back off. Valentina shook her head. It doesn't work that fast. My contact would need authorization, a warrant, jurisdiction approval. Even if she moved at light speed, it would take hours. We have minutes. Then we record everything. Whatever happens out there, we document it. Your phone, my phone, every word, every threat. Give your contact something she can use immediately to justify emergency intervention. That's... Valentina paused, considering. Actually not terrible. Risky, but not terrible. Another buzz. 1 minute. Okay. Valentina pulled out her burner phone, quickly dialing. Sarah? It's V. I need an emergency play. Yes, right now. I'm sending you a live audio stream. Record everything. If I say the words red envelope, that's your signal to mobilize every resource you have to my location. I know it's irregular, but trust me. Portland, residential neighborhood, will text you the exact address. She hung up, then looked at Daniel. She's standing by. The stream is live. Everything from this point forward is on record. Daniel pulled out his own phone, opening the voice memo app and hitting record. He slipped it into his shirt pocket. Microphone exposed. Together, he said. Together, Valentina agreed. They walked to the front door. Through the window, Daniel could see the black sedan more clearly now. 2 figures in the front seat, at least one in the back. Professional, patient, dangerous. Valentina opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Daniel followed, staying slightly behind her but visible. A show of solidarity. The sedan's back door opened and a man emerged. 50s, expensive suit, silver hair immaculately styled. He looked like someone's grandfather, kindly and distinguished. But his eyes were cold calculation. Ms. Rossi, he said pleasantly. You've been difficult to locate. Mr. Castellano, Valentina's voice was steady. I wasn't aware you were looking. Come now. Let's not play games. Castellano moved closer but stopped at the edge of the driveway, maintaining a careful distance. You have something that belongs to my associates. We'd like it back. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's just information. Dangerous information. The kind that could hurt a lot of people. Good people with families and futures. His gaze slid to Daniel. Speaking of families, I see you've made a new friend. Daniel Carter, software developer. Daughter named Emma, 7 years old. Attends Riverside Elementary. Daniel felt his blood turn to ice, but Valentina stepped forward slightly, drawing Castellano's attention back to her. Leave him out of this. He's nobody. Just someone who was kind enough to help a stranger. Kindness can be dangerous, Ms. Rossi. You of all people should know that. Castellano's smile never reached his eyes. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to retrieve those recordings, all of them, and deliver them to me within 24 hours. In exchange, we forget this unpleasantness ever happened. You go back to your life, we go back to ours. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to take measures, starting with your new friend's daughter. Such a sweet child. Would be a shame if something happened to disrupt her happy little life. Daniel couldn't stay quiet anymore. You're threatening a 7-year-old girl? Castellano turned to him fully now. I'm simply pointing out consequences, Mr. Carter. Actions have repercussions. Your decision to harbor Ms. Rossi has created complications. I'm offering a solution that allows everyone to walk away intact. By terrorizing a child? By encouraging cooperation. Castellano's voice remained pleasant, which somehow made it worse. 24 hours, Ms. Rossi, that's more than generous. Valentina was very still, but Daniel could see her mind working. Then she spoke, and her words were carefully chosen. I need more time. The files are hidden in multiple locations. Some out of state. Retrieving everything will take at least 48 hours. Unacceptable. It's reality. Unless you want partial files, which won't do you any good because I'll still have leverage, you'll give me the time I need. Castellano considered this. 36 hours. Not a minute more. And Mr. Carter and his daughter stay in Portland. No running, no involving authorities. You try anything clever, and they pay the price. Clear? Crystal clear, Valentina said, but Daniel caught something in her tone. A signal. One more thing, Castellano added. To ensure compliance, you'll check in with me every 6 hours. Miss a check-in, and we assume you've run, with all the consequences that implies. Understood. Excellent. Castellano smiled that dead smile again. I'm so glad we could reach an understanding. Oh, and Ms. Rossi, don't think about going to the authorities. We have friends in various departments. Any official inquiries will reach us long before they reach anyone who might actually help you. The red envelope you think you're holding? It's not as valuable as you believe. There it was. The phrase. Valentina had worked it in, but Castellano had unknowingly repeated it. The signal was sent. Castellano returned to the sedan, which pulled away smoothly into the night. Daniel and Valentina stood on the porch, waiting until the taillights disappeared completely before moving. Back inside, doors locked, Valentina was already on her phone. "Sarah, you got all that?" "Yes, direct threat against a minor. I know it's enough for emergency action. How long?" "Okay, we'll be ready." She hung up and turned to Daniel. "Federal agents are en route. 20 minutes, maybe less. They'll secure the house, take our statements, and move us to a safe location until they can round up Castellano and his associates." "It's really over? The immediate threat?" "Yes." "The bigger situation?" She sighed. "That'll take time. Trials, testimony, protective custody probably. But yes, Daniel, it's over." The relief was so overwhelming that Daniel had to sit down. His hands were shaking. "I need to check on Emma." He climbed the stairs on unsteady legs, easing open his daughter's door. She was exactly as they'd left her, curled up with Mr. Trunk, breathing deeply, lost in dreams that had nothing to do with threats and danger and impossible choices. Daniel stood there watching her, feeling the weight of every decision he'd made over the past few days. He'd protected her, kept her safe. That was all that mattered. When he came back downstairs, Valentina was standing at the kitchen window, arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable. "Thank you," she said without turning around, "for what you did out there. Standing with me. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." "Why?" She turned to face him. "Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Someone who brought nothing but danger into your life?" Daniel moved closer. "Because you're not just danger. You're a person trying to survive an impossible situation. Because Emma likes you. Because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because somewhere in the past few days you stopped being a stranger." "Daniel, I know. I know you have to disappear after this. New identity, new life. I get it. But I need you to know that these days, this bizarre, terrifying, impossible situation, they woke something up in me. Something I'd forgotten existed. The ability to feel more than just routine, to take risks, to care about someone beyond just survival." Valentina's eyes were bright. "You're making this very hard." "Good." They stood there in the kitchen where this had all begun, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. Outside, sirens approached, the cavalry arriving as promised. "I have to tell you something," Valentina said quickly before the moment could pass. "The safety deposit box, there's something else in there besides emergency documents. It's a letter. For you. I wrote it yesterday just in case. It says everything I can't say right now. Everything I don't have the right to say. Valentina, read it later, after I'm gone. And know that meeting you, being here with you and Emma, it was the most normal I've felt in 11 years. The most human. So thank you for reminding me who I used to be, who I might still get to be someday." The sirens were right outside now. Doors slamming, voices calling commands, the machinery of federal law enforcement mobilizing. Someone knocked firmly on the front door. "FBI! Ms. Rossi, Mr. Carter, please open the door." The next several hours passed in a controlled chaos of statements and evidence collection and security protocols. Emma woke up confused to find their house full of serious people in official jackets. Daniel explained that there was a situation, but she was safe, which was all she really needed to hear before falling back asleep on the couch, somehow unbothered by the activity around her. Valentina was taken to a secure location for her own protection and debriefing. Before she left, she managed to catch Daniel's eye one last time. A look that said goodbye and thank you and maybe someday and I'm sorry all at once. Then she was gone, escorted out by federal agents into an armored vehicle, disappearing into protective custody and whatever came next. 6 months later, spring had come to Portland, transforming the city from gray and wet to green and alive. Daniel stood in his backyard watching Emma practice cartwheels on the fresh grass, her laughter bright and uncomplicated. Life had returned to normal, mostly. The trial had been all over the news, a massive corruption case involving dozens of high-profile defendants. Valentina's testimony, combined with her recordings, had brought down an entire network of financial crimes and political corruption. It was called the biggest case of its kind in decades. Daniel had testified, too, briefly, about the threats made outside his home. He'd been listed in court documents only as protected witness C, his identity shielded. Emma never knew how close they'd come to real danger. To her, Valentina was just Daddy's friend who visited once and then had to move away for work. The letter from the safety deposit box was tucked in Daniel's nightstand drawer. He'd read it so many times he had parts memorized. "Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm either gone or things went very wrong. I need you to know that the days I spent in your home were a gift. You showed me kindness when you had every reason to slam the door in my face. You protected me when you could have turned me in. You stood beside me when you should have run. I don't know if people get second chances at life, at becoming who they were supposed to be. But if I do get that chance, it will be because you reminded me it was possible. Take care of Emma. Be happy. Don't let fear keep you from living. And maybe someday, if the universe is kind, I'll get to have coffee in that kitchen one more time and tell you all of this in person. Until then, V. Daniel had tried to find her, of course, but Valentina Rossi had ceased to exist. New identity, new location, complete severance from her old life. It was safer that way. For everyone. Daddy, watch this! Emma executed a wobbly cartwheel that ended with her flopping dramatically on the grass. Daniel applauded. 10 out of 10! You have to give real scores. Okay, 9 out of 10. Points deducted for the crash landing. Emma giggled and tried again. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Pioneer Courthouse Square. Today, 3 p.m. If you're free. His heart stopped. It couldn't be. Could it? He looked at Emma, then at his watch. 2:30 p.m. Emma had a play date at the neighbors in 15 minutes. Hey, Em. How about you head over to Sophie's house a little early? I have a quick errand to run. 30 minutes later, Daniel stood in Pioneer Courthouse Square, Portland's living room, surrounded by the bustle of a Saturday afternoon. Street performers, tourists, locals enjoying the spring weather. He scanned the crowd, not sure what he was looking for. Then he saw her. Different hair, shorter, lighter. Different clothes, casual jeans and a simple sweater. Even her posture was different. Less guarded, but the eyes were unmistakable. Valentina, or whoever she was now, sat at a cafe table with 2 coffee cups in front of her. She smiled when she saw him, and it transformed her face. Daniel approached slowly, hardly daring to believe this was real. Hi, she said as he sat down. Hi, he managed. I got you coffee. Black, 2 sugars. Hope that's still right. It's perfect. He stared at her. How are you here? I thought, witness protection doesn't mean prison, just means being careful. And I was told that after the trials concluded, if I wanted to reconnect with certain people, arrangements could be made, as long as I was smart about it. She pushed the coffee toward him. I've been in Portland for 2 weeks, watching from a distance, making sure it was safe, making sure you'd want to see me. Of course I want to see you. I wasn't sure. 6 months is a long time. You've moved on, built your life back. I didn't want to disrupt that. Valentina, it's Claire now. Claire Martinez. New name, new background, new everything. She smiled slightly. But with you, I'd like to just be me, whoever that is. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. You're someone who made incredible eggs, who read my daughter 3 chapters when she asked for one, who stood on my porch and faced down dangerous people with more courage than I've ever seen. You're someone I've thought about every single day for 6 months. I read your letter, too, Claire Valentina said quietly. The one you left at the FBI field office for me, where you said I was welcome back if I ever wanted to risk normal again. And I'm terrified. Normal is harder than danger in a lot of ways. There's no adrenaline to hide behind, just real life, real feeling, real possibility of getting hurt. I know. I'm terrified, too. They sat there in the spring sunshine, 2 people who'd survived the impossible and found their way back to each other. So what now? Claire asked. Now? We have coffee. We talk. We take it one day at a time. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. Emma's going to lose her mind when she finds out you're back. Fair warning. I'd like that. If you're sure. I'm sure. A street musician started playing nearby. Something soft and hopeful. People moved around them, living their lives, unaware that they were witnessing a small miracle. I have a job now, Claire said. Legitimate. Working at a nonprofit that helps people rebuild after financial crimes victimization. Using my skills for good, finally. It's weird, but I actually love it. That's amazing. And I have an apartment. Small, but it has a kitchen. I've been practicing my cooking. Thought maybe sometime you and Emma might want to come over for dinner? We'd love that. They talked for an hour, then 2, letting the afternoon slip away in conversation, making plans, sharing stories, slowly building something new from the foundation of what they'd shared in those impossible few days. When it was time to go, they stood, and Claire looked at him with an expression that held both hope and hesitation. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me, for being here. Always, Daniel said. He walked back to his car feeling lighter than he had in months, maybe years. His phone buzzed, Emma texting that Sophie's mom said she could stay for dinner if that was okay. He replied with a yes, then added, have some news when you get home. Good news. I think you'll be excited. That evening, after Emma was home and tucked into bed, Mr. Trunk safely in place, Daniel stood at his bedroom window looking out at the quiet neighborhood, the same view he'd had for years, but somehow it looked different now, full of possibility instead of just routine. On his nightstand, Valentina's letter lay beside a new one Claire had given him when they'd said goodbye that afternoon. This one read simply, "Some people come into our lives like a storm, sudden, disruptive, impossible to ignore. But the best storms don't just cause destruction. They water the ground, make things grow, clear the air so you can finally see clearly again. Thank you for being my clear sky after years of rain. Looking forward to whatever comes next. C." Daniel smiled and set both letters carefully in the drawer. Tomorrow he'd text Claire about that dinner. Tomorrow he'd start figuring out what this new chapter looked like. But tonight, he'd simply sit with the gratitude of second chances. For both of them. Because sometimes life doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes a stranger appears in your kitchen wearing your shirt, and everything changes. Sometimes danger becomes opportunity. Sometimes fear becomes courage. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, impossible becomes possible after all.